Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Easy English Bible Study Podcast. My name is David Gray, and together we're going to study the Bible and learn some English. Okay, let's get started. Welcome again to the podcast. The passage that we're doing today is for the 11th Sunday after Pentecost. And the passage is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. Okay, the name of this reading is often called Jesus Walks on the Water. Jesus walks on the water. This is a famous Bible story. Okay, verse 22. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. All right, so Jesus is finished preaching or speaking to the crowd and healing people. He's healing them of their diseases, of their problems. He's finished, and now he's going to dismiss the crowd. Dismiss is to send them away, to finish things, and to tell them they can go now. It's interesting that he does this by himself. I'm sure it took a lot of time. So the disciples go into a boat and go ahead of him. They're leaving first. Verse 23. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone. Well, we remember last week Jesus had heard Jesus heard that John the Baptist died, and he wanted to be in a quiet place by himself, but the crowd was following him. So now he can finally be by himself. We don't know what he's going to pray. Is he praying about John the Baptist dying? Is he praying about his ministry? We don't know. But he's going to pray. So even though Jesus is very busy, he makes time to pray. So let me continue. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. So he's alone, and the disciples are in a storm. The wind is blowing hard against the waves, making large waves, and that those waves are battering the boat. They're hitting the boat hard. It must have been a very rough ride on the boat at night. I'm sure it was scary. Even though they are fishermen, I'm sure the disciples were very nervous about the storm. Verse 25. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. Okay, so dawn is when the sun is coming up, but before the sun came up, Jesus is walking on the lake. He's walking on the water. He's going to the disciples, walking on water. Wow. Verse 26. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. All right, so they're very scared. They think he's a ghost. Of course. Verse 27. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Okay, Jesus immediately, that means right away, very quickly tells them, "It's me. It's Jesus. It is I." Verse 28. "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." Wow, Peter, amazing. Here's this terrible storm. It's windy, it's nighttime. They see Jesus walking on the water, and Peter is asking to walk on the water to Jesus. That's amazing. Great faith. Verse 29. "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. Okay, so Peter leaves the boat. He walks toward Jesus. He walks in the direction of Jesus. He's going to Jesus. Everything looks good. Wow. The other disciples must have been amazed to see Peter also walking on water. Thanks to Jesus, thanks to the power of Jesus, Peter is walking on water. Verse 30. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and, beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Verse 31. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" Okay, so here we see Peter showing great faith, strong faith, and then he shows weakness. He sees the wind, he looks around, and he gets scared, and he starts to sink into the water. He starts to go down into the water. But he cries out to Jesus, "Lord, save me." And immediately, right away, Jesus catches him. Jesus says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Jesus wanted him to believe, even with the wind. Verse 32. And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Okay, so when they got into the boat, the wind got weaker and weaker and stopped. It died down. Verse 33. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Okay, that's the end of the reading. So he gets into the boat, the wind stops, and they worship Jesus. Now, here's another Bible verse that shows that Jesus is God. It shows the Trinity. They worshiped him. You only worship God, right? Jesus does not say to them, "Oh, don't worship me." Or the Bible does not say, "Don't worship Jesus." Jesus should be worshiped because he is part of the Trinity. He is the Son of God. And here, Matthew is showing Jesus' power over nature. In the Old Testament, The Old Testament shows God's power over the ocean, over the sea. We see that in Job chapter 9, verse 8, and Psalm 77, verse 19. They show God moving upon the waters, moving on top of the waters. So we see that Jesus has godly power, divine authority. Jesus is not just a prophet. So, yeah, okay. Many times when I've heard this verse, people talk about how when we have troubles in life, and that's like the waves, the wind, the storm. When we look at Jesus, when we trust in Jesus, good things happen. We walk on the water like Peter. But then when we take our eyes off of Jesus, when we stop focusing on Jesus and we look at the wind and we look at the storm, we start to sink. And that's true. And I think that's a good lesson to learn. To keep our eyes on Jesus, to keep focused on Jesus. But this story about Jesus and his disciples also shows who Jesus really is. Matthew shows Jesus as the Son of God who has power over creation. He has power not just to heal people, but he could stop a storm. He walked on the water. And if we call on Jesus, if we ask Jesus to save us, Jesus will save us. And also, it is Jesus is worthy of worship. Jesus is the Son of God. We should worship him. So all these things are there, and I think it's there's so much in this story, just like the previous stories, that we can learn. I thought about Jonah. Do you know the story of Jonah in the Old Testament? Jonah disobeyed God. He was in a boat, and because he disobeyed God, there was a storm. The people in the boat realized that Jonah was doing something against God, and they didn't want to, but they threw him into the water, into the sea. And when he went into the water, the storm stopped. This was because Jonah was doing something bad. It's funny what I'm noticing, and I'm not saying this is important, but the story of Jesus here is the opposite. Jesus is the Son of God. There's a storm. He stops the storm, and then he goes into the boat. So, kind of the opposite of Jonah, isn't it? It's kind of funny. What are you learning from this story, from this event in the ministry of Jesus? Well, there's so many things to learn. I think obviously we can learn about Jesus, that he's the Son of God. We can learn that he saves us from the storms of life. One thing I learned was that Jesus, after being so busy in healing many people, he's so busy, and yet he takes time to go and to pray. He takes the time to go and pray. He wanted to go and be alone before. I mentioned this before. Before this event, he couldn't, but when it ends, after he's finished healing people, he goes alone to pray. So that's a lesson for me because I think I need to do that more. I need to take time to be alone, to take time to be alone and pray, to strengthen my relationship with God, to listen to God, to be close to God. Sometimes we get so busy, we don't take time to pray. But Jesus, even though he's the Son of God, or maybe especially because he is the Son of God, Jesus always took time to be with the Father. Okay, well, I hope that today's Bible reading was helpful for you, good for you, beneficial for you. Don't forget that you can comment on this podcast, whichever podcast app that you use, whether it's Spotify or YouTube or Apple or Podbean, whichever one you use. If you're able to make a comment, please do. It will help my podcast grow, my audience to grow. And also, you can contact me by email at easyenglishbiblestudy@gmail.com. Next week, the reading is from Matthew 15:21-28. And this is about the faith of a Canaanite woman. And that's next week's episode. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, please take care and God bless you. All right, bye now.